Welcome to Retired to Ride. This is our ride and review of our 1998 Honda ST1100 Pan-European. First, we're going to have a look at what it's like to ride the bike. We'll get a closer look at the bike later on in the film. The Pan is in its element on big flowing A roads. This road is the AL7107 on the south coast of Spain. 95% of the time I ride with a pillion, and that's the camera operator, Brenda the honey badger. My height, 179 centimetres, and my weight is 89 kilograms. Brenda is a little bit shorter and a little bit lighter, but the bike fits us both perfectly. On these big A roads, the Pan is very stable, it's very plush to sit on, you can sit on it for hours, and that engine is a wondrous thing, that V4 power plant. On these types of roads, most of the time I'm in fifth gear. I don't have to go down the box at all. The screen on the bike is not adjustable, but for my height, as I said, 179 centimeters, it's actually nigh on perfect. There's a little bit of wind noise on the top of my helmet. If I dip my helmet 5 centimeters, I'm in a bubble of quiet air. It's very well designed, this bike. The acceleration on the bike is more than adequate. The brakes are adequate. I think it's around about 100 horsepower. So if you're looking for something with stratospheric horsepower that, goes at Mach 10 with your hair on fire, this isn't the bike for you. But if you're looking for a budget tourer that does more or less everything, doesn't cost the earth, then maybe you should consider this. I think even in the 2020s, one of these in good condition is still a viable option. The centre of gravity on the bike is quite low because the fuel is, when you fill up the bike, goes underneath the seat. So all the weight's low down. And it handles surprisingly well for something that weighs north of 300 kilograms. It took a while for me to get used to the wing mirrors being so low. They're almost under the handlebars. Usually on a tourer, you're looking up at the mirrors. You get used to it after a while, and they do work. They're pretty good. This is a beautiful stretch of road. So, the bike handles A roads with ease. It's in its element. But maybe we should look at what it's like on B roads or minor roads. This is a section of the RM332, also in the south of Spain. This particular section of road is very popular with sport bike riders on the weekends, and I think you can see why. The Pan copes with this quite well. As long as you think about your entry and exit points on the bends and you're in the right gear, it actually hustles round the bends surprisingly well for something that weighs over 300 kilograms. Very well balanced and it's very stable. Long wheelbase, And as long as you muscle it in a bit to the bends, then it will do this sort of stuff. And bear in mind, I'm riding with a pillion too. I readily admit I was very surprised at how good the pan is on roads like this. I was expecting it to be more of a cumbersome beast, but it's not. It's a real surprise. The one major thing that we changed to enhance the handling was the tired old rear shock absorber. And it's almost impossible here in Spain to get one off the shelf, so we had to have one built. I can't remember the name of the company, cost us around 500 euros, but that was money well spent when you want to go and ride roads like this. And again, that engine is an absolute delight on roads like this. We've owned the bike for 3 years now, and we've covered over 45,000 kilometers on it. Recently just come back from an 8,000 kilometer tour around Europe, which you can see on our channel. There's 24 videos of that tour. The bike itself has covered over 108,000 kilometers, and it's still going strong. I've read on forums of 1,100 pan-Europeans that have exceeded 500,000 kilometers. So they're pretty good. And as long as you look after them and do the basic maintenance, they just keep going. We did the timing belt check at 99,000 kilometers, and it was like new, didn't need touching at all. Amazing things, these bikes. I think you can tell there's a little bit of pan love going on. I'm 64 years old and I've been riding bikes for 50 years now. And this bike is in my top 5. So what's it like on mountain hairpins? Well, this is where you really do feel the weight, particularly on a downhill hairpin. And as usual, I've got a pillion passenger on board. So yeah, it'll do it, but you feel the weight. It still stays planted, it's still stable, but you feel that weight of the bike, passenger, and luggage if you have got luggage. So yeah, it'll do this stuff all day long, but your arms might get a bit tired. This is another spectacular piece of road from Lublin. We're in the south of Spain again. From Lublin, and we're heading towards Vera on the coast. Beautiful bit of road. Thinking about what it's like to ride the bike over long distances, I think one advantage we have is we changed the seat. The standard seat was okay, but it's not plush. And we managed to get online a second-hand custom seat made by a company called Travelcade, and that made quite a significant difference. I also used one of those air seats, so I'd say we're on the bike 2.5 hours before we start to think really we need to stop, but bearing in mind we're in our 60s, so I think you'd expect us to do that anyway. I certainly don't have as much chunk in the trunk as I did when I was younger. So a comfy seat is very important. Other than that, it was easy. It's easy over long distance. The screen works, The engine is sublime. The riding position is good. The passenger position is good. The panniers carry quite a lot of stuff. The only thing we changed from a luggage perspective was the top box. The original Honda top box was this fiddly, tiny, horrible little thing, and we changed to a big Givi top box. Givi or Givi? Can't remember. Anyway. So, last bit is, what is it like on the motorway? The answer is supremely competent, supremely capable. It's really well designed for doing this sort of thing. Fifth gear, you never feel like you need more than 5 gears, particularly if you have a lot of luggage, as we have here, as we're whipping through France, and a passenger. You don't need more than the 5 gears. It will sit, sweet spot was 130 kilometers an hour, just gliding along. We're now on the Spanish side on a long uphill motorway stretch. I think this goes on for about 45 minutes. And the pan, that engine, pulls like a train. It's really impressive. So, motorway, autovia, autobahn, this is the Pan-European's playground. Loves this kind of riding. I think it's time to give a shout out of appreciation to Brenda the Honey Badger for her camera work on the back of the bike. Fuel consumption, that should interest a few people. So, depending on what sort of riding you're doing, we're getting anywhere between 5 to 7 litres of fuel to 100 kilometres. And I think that depends on whether you're in town and how aggressive you are with the right hand. Top speed of the bike, I don't actually know how fast it will go because I've never taken it to its limit. But we've sat on the German Autobahn quite happily at 160 kilometers an hour. And I didn't really feel the need to take it past that. So if you're asking for a standing quarter of a mile and all that sort of stuff, I can't answer. I think in the literary press, it's something like 12 and a half seconds from standing start, 0 to 100 kilometers an hour. But that really defies the point of what this bike is all about. For me, it's the epitome of a 1990s sports tourer. It's smooth, it's fast enough, it's plush, it's comfortable, it's well made. It even has some gadgets and accessories that I was quite surprised to find. It has traction control and ABS. There are 2 buttons on the left-hand side of the fairing near your knee. So another good thing, you can turn the traction control or the ABS on or off. Now here's an admission, I've never turned either of them on. I know that a lot of people who ride 1100 pans put bar risers on them and raise the bars up, and I understand why they would do that, particularly over distance, because that canted forward, leaned forward position can get a bit tiresome on the wrists and the neck after some distance. But the bars in their original setting are perfect for when you're on a B road and heading through some bends. So I didn't go that route of bar risers. And here we are riding in a city. Now, this isn't its natural playground, the Pan 1100, but it does cope with it quite well. As long as you're not trying to change direction really quickly, because it's not that sort of fidgety steering kind of bike. It's got a very long wheelbase, it's very stable, so it's quite slow steering. The engine gets very hot very quickly, and as long as the fan comes in, then it will stay midpoint on the temperature gauge. One of the things I've done religiously, bearing in mind I live in a hot country, I change the coolant every year. Once a year I change the coolant. This, by the way, is the city of Zaragoza in the north of Spain. Slow speed in the city, you do feel the weight of the bike, particularly if, as we have here, if you have all the luggage on and the passenger too. So I would say city riding is not this bike's natural environment. It's not what it was made to do. It'll do it without complaint, but it's nowhere near as quick as other smaller wheelbase bikes or scooters in and around the city. But do bear in mind the name of the bike. It's a pan-European. It's not made for riding around in cities. It's made for crossing continents with ease. And that it does very well. Trying to think of other snippets of information that may be of use to you if you're considering one of these bikes. We run the bike on Bridgestone Batlax touring tyres, and they're pretty good. I have no complaints. In fact, I've gone through 3 sets of them since I've owned the bike. Things like filters, oil and air filters, I've always gone for Honda original parts. I don't like the thought of trying something else. I think maybe that's just psychological. And spark plugs, the recommended spark plugs. And I've changed the shaft drive oil twice in 45,000 kilometers. During the last service, I also had the carbs balanced, which was a good idea. I think one of the main things in my head, anyway, when you're riding an old bike like this, is be prepared to pay for maintenance. A badly maintained one of these, I think, would be a nightmare. Overall impression, this is an amazing bit of kit. It's a really good bike. Forget the fact it was made in the 90s. If you get a good one of these, it's a good bike. It's good if you're considering a budget tourer or touring on a budget. It's good if you're considering distance work and with a passenger too. I rate this bike very highly. And we love riding it. We love going out on it. If you're mechanically minded or you have those facilities available to you, I see on the forums that a lot of people do their own maintenance too. So, I think maybe it's time to have a closer look at the bike. So here it is in all its wonderful Honda-fulness. So let's do some stats. 100 horsepower, maximum torque, 79 foot-pound of torque. Tank range, I get about 330 kilometers before it goes on reserve. Engine size 1084cc. It's a V4 16 valve. The frame's a steel double cradle. 28 litre fuel tank. Seat height 800 millimeters, and the weight, dry, I think, is 297 kilograms. Twin 296mm front discs and one rear, and the brakes are linked. And what does it sound like? You can see the aperture there on the tank to fill it up. That tank is an air filter cover, not a tank. The fuel goes in that hole and under the seat. The clocks are exactly the same as the CB1000F sports bike or the CBF 1000 sports bike. There on the left are the switches for the ABS and the TCS traction control. It has two cubby holes, left and right side, and the right hand one is lockable with the same key you use for the ignition and the panniers. And that's the very impressive Travelcade seat, which is made of leather. I think design-wise it's classic Honda, looks really good. I fitted a phone mount and a USB point between the clocks and the screen, and there you can see the 47-litre Givi top box. Just below the two cylinders that are sticking out on this side on the fairing is the impact deflector, that triangle-y looking thing. They work pretty good. Here's the bike from the front, and you can see the indicators are merged in with the mirrors. And the lights work singly. It's only when you use full beam that both lights come on. And now the fan will kick in. We did try at one stage using this Baglux Bagster tank bag thing, but found that it got in the way of the handlebars or interfered with the handlebars on full lock. Not so clever when you're halfway up a mountain on a hairpin. Here's an on the bench view of that V4 masterpiece of an engine. And here's a view to show you what it's like for a pillion to ride on the Pan-European. Production of the 1100 Pan-European was from 1989 to 2001, with a midlife upgrade in 1996. Post-1996 ones are easy to identify because the side panel looks different. The red lights on the top of the screen bar there are for the ABS and the traction control. Once the bike starts moving, they disappear. Apart from a rudimentary traction control system and ABS, the level of equipment on this bike is pretty basic. It's about par for a 1990s bike. Obviously, it doesn't have a TFT screen with built-in sat-nav or rider modes or tyre pressure gauges. It can't tell you what the average humidity is in Madagascar today, or where's the next best place to buy your double cream frothy latte cappuccino coffee with strawberry mousse on top, but it's a very good bike. So that's the end of our personal review of our Pan-European. Maybe you'd be interested in some of our tour videos that we completed this year. There's 24 in total, and we did over 8,000 kilometers. So if you want to see those, they're on our channel. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Maybe you'll make some comments and maybe you'll come back for another video soon.